Hello everyone, welcome to Technique Tuesday with a cherry on top. Today's theme is going to be watercolors, and I'm going to teach you a really easy, fun technique to create. You could create either an entire background, or in this case, we're going to create a section of a background using some watercolors. I'm going to start with my old school circle cutter and some chroma mist. So I traced a circle onto this paper. This is heavy weight hot press watercolor paper. And I'm going to be using a collection of chroma mists to paint onto this background. So I am using the colors Bark, Magnolia, and Crocus for my background today. These colors are perfect for matching the Simple Vintage Flower Shop collection from Simple Stories. That's the collection we're going to be using today. I have a cup of water, I have the chroma mist, and I also have a mini mister from Ranger. And what I'm basically going to be doing is I'm going to spray the chroma mist onto my glass mat, and then I'm going to go ahead and kind of paint in this circle. I'm going to add some splatters as well, but basically I am just looking for a nice wash. So this is my favorite paintbrush from my stash, and I'm just going to go ahead and spray the chroma mist, water it down a little bit, and then go ahead and add the color to this circle. So I came in with the Crocus, now I'm coming in with the Magnolia. We are going to cut this circle down, so we don't need to worry about staying inside the lines necessarily. But the reason that I drew that pencil mark is because I want my paint strokes to kind of follow that circular motion. And the best way for me to be able to do that and kind of get that kind of circled paintbrush strokes was to have that little bit of a guideline there. So I am just adding more water when I need, and I'm filling in this whole circle with these paint strokes. I'm coming in lighter on on some places, heavier on some places, adding splatters, just getting a nice watercolor wash onto my paper. So if you kind of think of this as a bubble, I'm going to come in with the Bark chroma mist, water it down a little bit, and I'm using a different paintbrush. So this is more of a flat paintbrush, and I'm just adding kind of like some highlights to my background here. Again, I'm not filling this in, and the reason I chose Bark and the reason I am adding this brown to my circle is because I'm going to be using that Flower Shop collection from Simple Stories, and that Flower Shop collection from Simple Stories has this gorgeous pop of brown in it, and I think that that is my favorite part of that whole particular line of products. Is it's really light and pastel, but then there's this deep dark pop of chocolate brown that I think is just lovely. So once I have my painting done and I'm happy with it, I'm going to set this aside to dry completely. For my layout today, I am going to be scrapbooking 2 heritage photos. So both these photos are from the 1950s. They are photos of my aunt as a baby. One of them, she is with my grandfather, and one of them, she is with my great uncle. So I've chosen some cut apart pieces from both the 12 by 12 and 6 by 8 paper pad. I've chosen a couple of die cuts. I've chosen a background paper. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to almost scrapbook most of my embellishments, most of my my photos, all those kinds of things onto a 6x8 sheet of paper. You'll see as I go through here. So I'm starting with the photos. I'm going to map both my photos and I'm going to ink them up using Distress Oxide ink in Vintage Photo. Then I'm going to place both the matted photos onto another piece of the 6x8 paper, and I kept all of the papers I chose very neutral because this is going to be a base. We are going to layer lots of color and fun and interesting things on top of here. So I wanted to have kind of a neutral spot to put it. You'll also notice that there is a gap between my two photos because as I work through the embellishments, I'm going to fill that gap in a little bit. So there will be a lot of color added on top of these neutral papers. So my idea is to have a bunch of elements, including my journaling and everything, on clustered together. So for me, the best way to do that is to just go ahead and kind of scrapbook this photo mat. So add layers, add things to it. And this works really well because I'm going to go ahead and have that watercolored panel in the background, but it needs to dry. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and kind of just add all these layers, use my glass board, and kind of decide where I want all these bits and pieces to go. Now, these pieces are all from the cut apart papers that are in the collection. I believe it's a mix, so the tags and some of the larger pieces are from the 12x12 papers. The small areas that I'm going to journal on, those are from the 6x8 paper pad. So I'm going to go ahead and keep adding all of these fun little bits and pieces where I want them. I'm inking everything up with the Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink, and then I'm adhering them where I want, right around those photos. Next up, I am going to come in with some of the floral ephemera pieces. These pieces are quite large, and I'm going to end up cutting some of them down. But again, they are just going to be added right there onto this cluster that I am building. So I'm going to choose the floral pieces that I want, then adhere them and tuck them in around this cluster, which now is becoming like one piece, right? Because I'm gluing it all together. So when I build the background, this will be done. It'll be clustered. It'll be ready to go. And I can just add it to the background paper I've chosen and then add the watercolor panel. I always cut large florals in half and tuck them in. Very rarely do I ever use them as one full piece. I even do that with the stickers. I love florals, but I like them to be little smaller elements on a page, not so large. So now it's time to go ahead and work with this circle piece. I'm going to use this exact same circle. This is the circle that I used to trace out onto the watercolor paper, but now I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to cut it on the inside. This is an old circle cutter. I think it's Creative Memories from 20 years ago. It still works great. I still love it. So I've cut the circle. Now you can see how different that looks. Now we have this kind of a circled, smooth little watercolor panel. We're going to make that part of our background. And I'm going to give you an idea of what this layout is going to end up looking like here. So this little watercolor panel is just going to be kind of like a photo. It's going to become part of that cluster, and it's going to be a little bit of a break between the polka dot paper that I want to use as my background and that cluster of embellishments. So I'm going to go ahead and rough up the edges and then ink the edges of the watercolor circle with that Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink. If you are recreating this does not have to look perfect. If you've never really worked with watercolors before, this is a great beginner technique because we're going to cover up quite a bit of this with that cluster we created. So if there's parts you don't like, if there's things you don't love about it, that is okay, because you can see here this watercolor panel is going to just seamlessly become a part of this larger, gorgeous project. Once I have the watercolor panel adhered, I want to pop up this entire photo cluster panel we have going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and put a ton of foam tape on the back, take up all the release paper, and pop it up. Before I added the foam tape, I also went ahead and added the journaling to the cluster. So I'm just going to kind of center that onto the page, and here you can see how that just allows our watercolor panel is going to allow all of these elements to kind of pop up and away from them, which I love. I hate naked tags, so I'm grabbing some hemp twine, and I'm going to go ahead and add some bows and some little strings to my tags. I want that twine to provide a little bit of texture and a little bit of interest. So in addition to tying the bow, I am also kind of just tacking down the strings. So they still have the look of being kind of free, I guess, but they're also not going to move from where I want them. For title, I'm going to add this small foam sticker onto the layout, and then I'm also going to add 2 more little butterflies to the layout just for a little bit of extra dimension and interest, something that's not a flat sticker to the page or a flat piece to the page. So just those 3 little elements, and then I'm also going to take the 12 by 12 cardstock sticker sheet. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a couple little elements, mostly to kind of, I felt like there were some areas of this layout that looked a little bit like sharp edges and right angles that I didn't want. So I'm just going to kind of fill in and cover up those areas a little bit. I think that's it. I think those are the only 2 spots that I felt really needed a little bit of something there. Now I'm going to fill in that gap between the 2 photos. I'm going to take 2 of the small stickers. I'm going to cut them in half and then kind of layer them up and place them right in the middle. So that kind of brings some of that color that's on the outside edges of my photos right there into the rest of the design of the page. And I think that that really makes everything seem cohesive and really nice. I love how that turned out. So there is my finished layout for today. If you would like to hit that like button, hit subscribe, that would be amazing. And I hope you enjoyed this process for a really lovely watercolor background element on your page today. Here are all of the close-ups. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you again soon. Bye.